tonight is going to be a long meditation, and I'm going to start off by adjusting this camera so it's not so weird. Okay. I'm going to start off with just a very short talk that is going to be about the question of the week. Nope, it's going to be about the internal challenge of the week. And I first came up with this about a year ago when school was starting to go back in after a long break from COVID. And one of the kids in class asked me, he said, I am about to go back to school and I'm feeling some anxiety about this. I'm afraid of being back in that situation with a bunch of people around, and I'm just nervous about that. And I was thinking in that moment, like, there's a lot that we can practice dealing with in martial arts. We can have somebody throw a punch at us and we can practice moving out of the way. Somebody can grab you, can be on the ground, and we can kind of simulate to some extent, but it's kind of hard to practice doing this without actually being in the situation where you're in the crowd of people. And of course, you could just go out into another crowd and I guess leave after a few minutes, but that didn't come to my mind at the moment. I thought, let's visualize this. So the advice I gave at that moment, Tim, was what you can do is just close your eyes and visualize. Imagine yourself in your mind's eye walking into school. Imagine yourself being in that situation, and imagine yourself really responding well to it. And you might, in your visualization, feel the physiological response to that fear. You might feel your body tensing. You might feel your heart rate pick up or your breathing get shallow. And when you feel that, that means that you're doing a good job of visualizing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And you can, as part of your visualization, you can feel yourself dealing with that by letting go and consciously relaxing your body, your mind, going back to the breath. You can also skip that part and just imagine yourself dealing well with that situation, even while you are in that stressed out body state where you have that kind of energy. And this is really important because we as human beings, we have this tendency to run these tapes. Sometimes they're just thoughts that are like audio tapes, but very often, for me at least, I'm very visual. It is a visual, it's a film that you're running, and you might be playing back a thing that you already experienced, and you are just playing back the trauma of this dumb thing that you did or whatever it is. You might be playing over and over again something that you expect to be coming up. And this is really important for us as human beings because we are meant to be able to kind of, to some extent, predict what's going to happen. This is how we stay alive. We can predict what will happen if we walk out into the street and cars are driving by, right? We want to be able to predict, and the problem is we get too hung up on this and we get attached to these visualizations. We are predicting to the point where we're kind of stuck on this, and we're experiencing the stress and the anxiety as if it were real life when it's not. So I'm not saying that you should stop visualizing, although at some point that will be the case. If you're visualizing the same thing over and over and over again, and all you're doing is imagining the negative part, but not imagining the resolution, this is bad. You want to go further and actually visualize the resolution of it. Visualize yourself responding well. Visualize yourself walking into school and being calm and, talking to people and being okay with it. Visualize yourself with that. One of the students today before the Kung Fu class told me she's been visualizing this confrontation with a family member, and she's going to go home and do it tonight. She's going to make the call and have this conversation that she's been kind of dreading. And she's been, in that case, I asked her, well, how have you been imagining it going? Because You can be too specific and attached to a specific outcome, which is not always something that you can control, right? So in a conversation, you might imagine what you're going to say, and then you could try to imagine all the 1,000 different responses that they're going to have, but that's kind of complex and a little bit over the top. So she said, well, I'm kind of visualizing the feeling of what I want, the way that I want this conversation to feel. And I said, that's great. You can feel yourself being open. You can feel yourself listening and having it be a conversation rather than just a lopsided, somebody yelling or an argument. And this is great. When we practice this in our minds as we visualize, it can become real. And this is not just some new age woo-woo, like we're living in the clouds and everything is fluffy and nice. This is science. And I meant to look up the specific study that I always quote because I don't like saying, studies say this. I say it all the time. But there's a specific study, and I went back and read about it because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't telling lies, spreading disinformation. There is an actual study that took 3 groups of people. There was a control group, and then there were 2 groups that were put to this task. And some of you have heard me talk about this before. It was an experiment around visualization using free throwing. So in basketball, the free throw, you're standing at the free throw line and you just get to shoot the ball for free. And there was a group of people. What they did was they took the whole group, the whole experiment, and they measured how good they were at shooting free throws. And then they sent them away for a period of time. I can't remember what, let's say that it was a month. And they had one group do nothing. You're not visualizing or thinking about it. You're not practicing it. You're just not doing anything. The second group was practicing shooting free throws. They actually went to the gym or to the basketball court. They got a real ball and they practiced shooting for a specific amount of time. Let's say it was a half an hour a day they were doing this. And then the third group never touched a basketball. All they did was visualize for the same amount of time. They visualized themselves shooting free throws. And I assume that group visualized themselves actually making the shots because that group improved with their free throw skills. Their percentages went up by the same amount as the people who were actually physically practicing, while the control group that did nothing did not get any better, or they probably got worse. So it's amazing, and that is not the only study that has shown this, but it's a very tangible kind of real world example that shows the power of visualization. When we are able to visualize something and do a good, strong visualization, it makes it real for us. And so we can use this in our martial arts practice. You might visualize yourself doing a form like in Tai Chi. You might visualize somebody attacking you, and you can imagine yourself moving out of the way and landing great techniques and knocking this person out. The visualization is great. I would not go so far as to say that you don't need to ever actually practice with a person, because I think there's a limit to this. But it is very helpful, and it is very helpful in lots of areas of life. So a way of facing your fears before actually putting yourself in that situation where there might be some kind of physical harm that could come from it, or some kind of irrevocable harm, like me trying to say the word irrevocable for the first time in years on camera. Before you put yourself in that situation, you can visualize it. And it's a great skill to have. It is distinct from what we call meditation, though. And that is not true of how everybody talks about meditation. Some people consider visualization a part of meditation. Some people consider breathing exercises or breath work as meditation or a form of meditation. And these are all great, and they definitely serve similar purposes. When we talk about meditation, we're talking about letting go of thought. And visualization can aid you in letting go of most thought, but it's still, on some level, it is thoughts, right? And I like the idea of using a visualization to maybe lead into meditation, but ultimately, with this style of meditation, at least, you want to be able to let go of the visualization and just be totally present with the breath, with no extra thought, no judgment. That being said, when you sit to meditate, you might start having thoughts and you might start visualizing something. So if it happens in tonight's meditation, and especially if it happens where you start to imagine yourself in that scary, stressful situation, you start to feel, this might be where you recognize that, oops, I'm not meditating, I'm thinking, because your body might have a response. Okay, recognize that, and then practice in that moment. Take the visualization to its end. And it should not end by you getting beaten up. It should not end by you looking like an idiot in front of a crowd of people. It should end with you handling it really well. And then you let it go. And I think of this also, like, people ask me very often, Sifu, I keep getting this song stuck in my head. And no matter what I do, it keeps playing over and over again. And what do I do? And one of the things that I suggest, and I don't think that it works all the time for everybody, but one thing that you can do, it works for me, is to actually play the song in your head all the way until the end and then let it be silent. If you just play the hook, or you play the chorus and you just go back and replay it over and over and over and over and over and over again, you get really stuck with that. So play it all the way to the end and like hear that part of the song where there's that final chord or it fades out, and then that's the end of it. Same thing when you're visualizing yourself dealing with that fear, is you imagine the end because you handled it, you dealt with it, you responded well, and then you can set that aside and go back to your meditation. So don't look for something to visualize, don't look for something to try to stress yourself out with tonight. Allow yourself to be just completely absorbed by the sensation of the breath. But if it does happen, use that opportunity, take the visualization to its end, and then go back to the breath. So tonight, we're going to do a longer meditation. I'm going to leave the cameras on. I'm going to chime the bell a couple of times throughout the meditation. That's just a reminder to go back to the breath. If you do catch yourself either by yourself or when I hit the bell, just let go of whatever thought you had and come back to your breathing meditation. Sit comfortably. You can leave this stuff on. Meryl, go ahead and hit all the lights except for the top. So we'll go quickly over the sitting posture for meditation. I like to sit in Seiza, but you can sit cross-legged as long as you can do that comfortably. The position of your legs is important. So if you sit cross-legged the way that I do and your knees point straight up, that's the problem. You want your knees even with or below your hips. Your back is straight, so you're going to roll your shoulders back and then relax. You're not trying to be overly rigid with your posture. Have your chin parallel to the ground. Yeah, I can see that clock. Your eyes are closed and slightly raised up. So your eyes are raised to the point between your eyebrows, but not crossed. So if you have a hard time getting this position, you can practice visualizing tonight. Visualize that spot on your forehead between your eyebrows. And by literally just having that image in your mind, your eyes will naturally raise up to that position. It's all we want is a slightly raised gaze. From here, let's start tonight with a couple of deep breaths. We'll do a breathing exercise. Begin with all the breath out. Breathe in through the nose. Hold it at the top for a few seconds. And breathe out through the nose or the mouth. Breathe in from the belly up. Hold at the top. Breathe out. In. Hold. Out. In. Hold. Out. Last one. In. Hold. And finish with a double exhalation. Just let your breath come in. Let your breath go out. I'm going to be an outside observer. There's no judgment on the breath, no manipulation of the breath. You just allow it to flow. Whenever your mind wanders, bring it gently back to that sensation of the breath. You can feel it in your belly. You can feel it in your throat or in your nose as it comes in and out. Try to feel the sensation of a subtle vibration in your entire body and feel how that changes along with the breathing. But whenever the mind wanders, continue bringing it back to the breath. Bem, César. All right. It's even right. Guys. Have a wonderful night. Stay and stretch if you want for a few minutes. I'll see you tomorrow.